Welcome to the Dan Casper Show podcast, your chance to catch the full show anytime, anywhere. If you missed it live on the radio, no worries. We've got you covered with all the sports talk, opinions, interviews, and conversations from the show. From the Packers to the Brewers to the biggest stories in sports and around Wisconsin, it's all right here. This is the Dan Casper Show podcast. All right, here we go. Second hour kicking off right now on this Tuesday morning. It is a Toyson Ford, a Grind My Gears Tuesday. What the heck is grinding your gears? We got one from C-Bomb we'll get to here in a minute, but you can hit us up with yours, 715-830-1912, or in the Section 105 chat. We talked a lot of Brewers in that first hour, the Brew Crew falling to the Cardinals last night, game 2 tonight. Brandon Sproat on the mound. We did see Jackson Cheerio and Andrew Vaughn make their, I should not make their debut because, it did for Cheerio, not Vaughn, but Jackson Cheerio looked really dang good last night. So hopefully that could carry over into game 2 and for the full-on season here. So, but we'll get back to some more Brewers talk coming up a little bit later on. We've got some Badgers catching up with RJ Cardinal next hour down in Badgerland. So, we'll talk a little bit about that. It is also a sports confession Tuesday. So what's your sports confessions? Send them on over. Also, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying blank, but I'm just saying blank. Fill in the blank. Best ones we'll read up on the air. We got some Packers chat coming up here as well. Packers bringing in a brand new backup quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. You like it? You like the signing? Joe likes it. Smart move by the Packers, money and experience-wise, he says, on our Section 105 chat room. Barb over there also said, going back to the Brewers, Mitchell's just about catch. What a try. Sal's slide into first base. They definitely wanted that game. But do you like the Tyrod Taylor signing? And then some first impressions. We're going to hear a little bit from Jonathan Gannon. It was his, I guess we could call it introductory presser, finally. With the Packers as defensive coordinator. So also Cam Achord chatted a little bit with the media. So we're going to hear from them, and I want to get your impressions from them. But C-Bomb, to kick off the second hour, says, it is a Grind My Gears Tuesday. Here's what's grinding my gears today. People, if you want to drive 48 miles an hour on a 2-lane highway, that is fine. But when you see a row of 15 vehicles behind you, move over and let them pass. For the love of Pete, we'll say, people have no awareness of their surroundings. Get it off your chest, peeps. What else do you got for a little Toyson Ford Grind My Gears Tuesday? All right. Let's just jump right to it, shall we? Let's chat a little green and gold here. So Jonathan Gannon, we got to hear from him a little bit yesterday. In case you didn't hear him, I'll play a little bit of that for you. From his press conference yesterday. He talked about style, defense. He wants to play, what maybe a Jonathan Gannon defense is going to look like for the Pack and such. So, you know what? Let's just play it. All right, this was from Jonathan Gannon's presser yesterday, chatting with the Green Bay media for the first time.
What does a Jonathan Gannon defense look like here?
We'll find out, huh? I'm excited. I'm really big into play style, as Matt is, and the game is about the ball. So, you got to find ways to take it away, and our job is to get Jordan back on the field as quick as we can. So, schematic and technical execution, and play fast.
Do you stand up your edges all the time? And what qualities do you like to see in those guys? Will you sacrifice some pass rush to get a 265-pound guy out there? Or are you okay with guys in their 240s?
That's a little bit player dependent, honestly. I mean, our edge guys be able to affect the passer from a rush standpoint, be able to set a firm edge and a little bit of drop when we need them to, but stance that can be predicated on the guy and by call. Honestly, I do like standing our guys up at times because it gives them some vision, but it'll be kind of player dependent.
You got the players in the building now, but what have the last couple months been like for you learning about the skill sets and then also getting your defense familiarized with the coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fun process. It really has. Matt's been awesome, having to go through that process with him. But a lot of new coaches, obviously some coaches were here. So just the hiring and onboarding of those guys, putting the kind of the playbook together has been a really cool thing. And then just studying our players, and I think, we've done a pretty good job, Matt. I love how he did kind of the off season. Like, we watched all the tape, and it's like, let's look at each guy and see what one or two things they can get better at that we want them to be mindful of as they get back in the building now, as we go through phase 2 and OTAs. And that's what the game is about, improving the players, So it's been a fun, cool process. A lot of energy, that's for sure. So we'll see. We finally got on the grass today with them, which was cool. So we got 3 weeks of that. And we'll just keep it day by day.
For you, what's it like to walk into a building and know you have Micah Parsons to work with? Then at the same time, no, you probably won't have him for a little bit, and you don't get to play with that toy just yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited about working with all our players, honestly. Obviously, Micah's just, a really good player, and that's going to be fun. But we got a lot of good players. So it's been, just take it day by day, and we're trying to improve all our players, and we're fitting it in, and it's been cool, I think, for them. It's new for everybody, and, the questions in the meeting rooms and on the grass, it's really cool to see that.
That said, are you planning to be super creative with Micah? Have you spent a lot of time designing things that you want to with different personnel because you have Micah?
Yeah, I think, part of, if you talked about scheme, it's like I believe in who do you have and who you're playing, and try to align your people to affect the game in a positive way. So he's obviously a piece that we're going to be mindful of when we're putting together, the scheme, and especially when you get to game planning.
Jonathan, speaking of scheme, I was reading a story when you got to Philly where Sirianni asked you what your scheme was, and you told him, I don't have a scheme. Mm-hmm. That story's true?
It is.
Obviously you have plenty of ideas, but what was kind of the point? It sounds like that's kind of...
Yeah, the point is that, Matt, same thing, honestly. The point is the game's it adapts, right? And I don't really get caught up into 4-3, 3-4. We're an NFL style defense, hopefully, right? And I just believe that you got to continually every year try to adapt and solve problems and really with your guys in mind, right? So this is a whole new crew for me that we're just getting to learn. All new different players, so that's kind of what I mean by that. But there's some principles that, there's some things that I like to do, but it's only if our players can do it. I told them the other day, I was like, if we're not good at this just because I like it, we're not going to do it, so that's our job. We got to put them in the best positions possible that they feel comfortable that they can go out and play the game. And, before scheme, I truly believe it's not what you play, it's how you play. And that goes into, Matt calls it play style. I love that. So that's been cool with our guys to define that for them. Here's the expectation. Here's what you're accountable for. We're all accountable for it. Because I think that's what a good defense looks like, a fast, violent, physical team that takes the ball away.
Was Nick taken aback by that?
No, he probably laughed. He says, you better get one, But, no, it's obviously a really good relationship with Nick, but that's what I meant by that.
All right, so that's just a little bit from Jonathan Gannon's presser yesterday. Kind of got now. Let's before we get too deep into it. Obviously, this is a presser. It's talk, and I'm sure there's a lot of people say talk is cheap, right? Got to actually do it on the field. Because you're probably listening to some of that stuff. You hear fast, violent, physical team that takes the ball away. Thing that I keep saying over the years as you adapt to the players. You don't pigeonhole. You don't put a square peg into a round hole. You put players in a position to succeed, which is exactly what you hear. That's the stuff I want to hear, right? That's the stuff we like to hear. There's some stuff like, all right, cool, yeah. But we got to see it on the field, right? So we know that. But given what you have heard from just a little bit, that was just a small sample size from new Packers defense coordinator Jonathan Gannon. First impressions, your thoughts All right, let's talk about that coming up here a little bit, and we'll get to Cam and special teams coordinator Cam Achord here in a little bit. But wanted to play a little bit to get your thoughts and give you some time to send over what you think. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back to talk some more green and gold, including the new backup quarterback. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Dings, dents, or something more serious? Hey, don't stress about it. Just head on over to Superior Auto Body. From minor touch-ups to major collision repairs, they're your go-to team for getting your vehicle back to looking like new. With experienced technicians and attention to every detail, Superior Auto Body takes pride in doing the job done right the first time. So when life happens to your vehicle, trust the team Eau Claire drivers rely on. That's Superior Auto Body, your go-to place for all of your auto body needs. So we got to hear from Jonathan Gannon yesterday. Played a little bit of that, just a very small portion of what he had to say and kind of his introductory presser, really, because it's the first time he's talked to the Packers media and such. But and again, I know it's talk is cheap. Got to see the results on the field and such. But I think the one thing I really want to focus on is where he has said multiple times he doesn't have a scheme. And I think a lot of times, and this is just me being an armchair quarterback in this whole thing, okay? I'm just like all of you at this point. When you look at the current state of the NFL and the style of play, I don't think you can just kind of maybe really pigeonhole yourself into this is what we're going to play. This is the style. I think you have to be adaptable, and I think you have to be versatile in a lot of those aspects. You could have elements for sure, because I think you have to start from somewhere. And I think you have to have elements of what you want to do. But I also think you have to be able to adjust, adapt offenses. I mean, you look at it, whether it's a Shanahan offense or maybe like a Mike McCarthy offense or gosh, remember the Chip Kelly style of offense. I feel, or Andy Reid, if you will. There's different variations of offenses. West Coast, no huddle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever you want to do. There's so many different variations that I think from a defensive standpoint, you have to be able to be versatile and adaptable in trying to stop so many different styles of offenses, whether it's a run-first offense or whether it's a pass-heavy offense, an offense that really features their tight end compared to a boatload of receivers, or maybe they just will turn it around and hand the ball off 50 times, or they got a mobile quarterback that they utilize in their game planning. There's so many variations to offenses that I think right now to be a successful NFL defense, you have to be adaptable. You have to be versatile. So just to flat out say, we are a 4-3 defense, and this is how we're going to play, or we are a straight-up 3-4. All right? This is how we're going to – I think you have to have – you can have a basis, and you can have elements of a style of defense, but you also have to have that versatility. And I think a lot of times we as fans, and I'm guilty of it too, we get so caught up in scheme and style of defense that really when you look at it, it's more complex than that. And I think to be successful, you've got to be able to do a bunch of different things, because there is so many different things now when you look at it across the league of how offenses are being constructed. You got these, they're kind of like mad scientists in a lab, but they got their marker boards and their whiteboards and all that, they're trying to come up with creative plays and all that. And from a defensive standpoint, you're trying to counter that. You're trying to stop that. So I think you have to have that versatility to be able to do that. So to hear, I guess the point I'm getting at is when you hear Jonathan Gannon say, I don't have a scheme. I don't have a scheme. I think that's what he's getting at. That's the point he's trying to say here is we're going up against these offenses now in 2026 where they can do so many different things, and they're so creative and they're so versatile that to be a successful defense, we have to have that same ability. We have to have that same mindset. So we may have elements of a 3-4 where we have our guys standing up or edge rusher standing up, but we got to be able to do different things to stop these offenses to be a successful defense in the National Football League. So I know there was just kind of, it gets to be a dark place in social media and such, and there was people kind of like, what do you mean you don't have a scheme? He doesn't have a game plan and all. Stop. All right? That's not what he's saying. That's not what the point is. No. And I think it's just you have to be able to be adaptable. You have to be able to be open. And, a couple other things he said that I didn't play on there, but he did talk about, the defensive line saying, quote, I do think it's a big man's game, especially late in the year. That matters. So you have to have size. And we know that is one area that Green Bay has to be better at, is stopping the run. And look at last year. It was towards the end of the season, right, where you kind of saw some holes in the running game. And stopping the run. Beefing up that defensive line. Right? That's when you want your defensive line to be playing its best football, when the weather kind of turns a little bit, it gets a little bit cold, and maybe teams want to try to run the ball a little bit more. That's when you want your defensive line to be playing at its highest levels in those late games and dictating the line of scrimmage. You want your defense to kind of be at that point where they're dictating what you can do from an offensive standpoint. You want them to control the line of scrimmage. But he also said, too, with, obviously Micah Parsons was a big topic of conversation. But he said he met Micah, who was in Green Bay rehabbing on his initial interview in January. Also said Jordan Love's presence on the roster was a major reason this job was attractive. He said, quote, when you get those things right, you have a chance to win. So, again, overall, it's a lot of talk. And for a lot of people, talk is cheap. Prove it on the field. Go out there and prove it on the field. I think the one thing, and I might be overplaying this, and I probably am for a little bit, but you look at the division that Jonathan Gannon was a head coach for the last couple of years. It was the Arizona Cardinals. The other teams within that division, the defending champs, Seattle Seahawks, 49ers, Sean McVay. And it's all about, I think your first goal is you got to stop. You got to win your division. You got to be able to win your division games. But to have that experience that he did as a head coach in game planning for teams like the Seahawks, like the 49ers, and the Rams, especially those offenses from, those teams, I think that is going to be a benefit for this defense, that, game planning for those styles of offenses. Because you look at within this division, the NFC North, it starts with Ben Johnson and the Bears offense, right? Creative, versatile. Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. Kyler Murray. Where was Kyler Murray at? Under Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. But Kevin O'Connell is Sean McVay disciple, right? Lions, they've got a new offensive coordinator, but they may be going back to a little bit of the Ben Johnson era. And who's their offensive coordinator? Oh, it was the Cardinals offensive coordinator under Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing. So that experience that Gannon is bringing from, coaching in that division, going up against those offenses, and then, you look at the NFC North, I think he's in a position from that experience standpoint to put his defense, put this Packers defense in a good spot. At least it is wishful thinking. It is. Let's be real. It's a lot of wishful thinking. But I think when we look at it from a paper standpoint and look at what's in front of us and be like, okay, there's you could point to a lot of things and be like, okay, I like that. That's interesting. That's intriguing. And I think in the end, I'm optimistic about this. I'm going to choose to be optimistic about this. So how about Cam Achord, the special teams coordinator? Dude likes to talk. But I'm going to play a little bit from his presser because, again, this was kind of an introductory too. So he started off by kind of giving a little bit of a bio about himself to the media before he took some questions and such. So let's hear from Cam. And again, from a position, from a special teams unit that Packers fans want to see some improvement from.
Just real quick, just give you a quick bio about myself, and then we'll let you guys kind of open it up and start asking questions. Obviously, last 2 years been in New York, helping out there with the Giants. Prior to that was in New England, which you guys know. Prior to that was junior college in Mississippi, which I fall back on a lot because when you're coaching a lot of different things, you got to focus on a lot of different things, from doing the fields to equipment to every little ins and outs you can do. Obviously born and raised in Mississippi. Spent my life 32 years there, played small college ball in Jackson. Then I was blessed to get the opportunity to go to New England. So real quick spill, got a wife and a soon-to-be 3-year-old. So I know you guys want to get to doing football and everything too. So we'll let y'all open up with some questions and stuff.
So how does a guy make the jump from junior college to the NFL? How does that happen?
Yeah, relationships. So when I was at Southern Miss GA my last year there, Joe Judge spent February to the end of March there. He was going to coach the tight ends and do special teams. So I got to know him there. So basically going in on the weekends from 6 a.m. to call it 10, 11 o'clock at night, just watching all this Alabama film because he just came from Alabama. And then he got the call to go be Scotty O's assistant in New England. And so when he left, we just stayed in touch, communicated. I'd watch a lot more New England games then. I go back to like the Super Bowl they played in. I take a picture of him talking to Bill on the sideline. I send him a picture then. I was like, hey, you're about to probably kick the onside kick, surprise onside kick there. Different things, but just communication and not really badgering the guy, but asking for advice here and there and just building a relationship. So to me, it doesn't matter whether you come in contact with somebody for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you're going to make an impression on them. So make sure you're making a good impression on somebody. Make sure they understand who you are and you're genuine. You'll hear me say that word a lot. I believe in being genuine. I tell our guys to be genuine. Genuine excitement. You'll see me at practice once you get out there and stuff. I'll move around a pretty good bit. But that's really how I got there. He called me, asked me if I wanted to interview. So I went up there and actually interviewed. Bill wasn't there at the time, so I had to go back. I actually became the head coach of the junior college for about a month and a half during that time. And I'm a very loyal person. So when Judge called me, he was like, hey, I want to re-interview you. Bill wants to be here. And I was like, I can't do it. So I initially turned the second interview down, but about 4 hours later, I called him back and said, what am I thinking? So went up there. I got the interview, and Bill offered me the job that day. So that's how I ended up here.
Cam, how much influence did you have on your team getting Trace Mack?
It was a collaborative effort, kind of like Goody, Matt kind of alluded to. You give your opinion to those guys. You tell them where you kind of feel like guys are, where they will be, what they'll be in the future. To me, when you're projecting guys, you're not just projecting their first year, you're projecting what they can be in year 2, 3, 4. So you give your opinion to those guys, you say what you're convicted in, and then, obviously they make those decisions, but you're obviously giving your input.
What about him stood out to you?
Straight ball, accuracy. His ball doesn't move a lot. For me, I don't need a guy, and I've been blessed to coach a lot of guys that are really good. I don't need a guy that can kick 65 yards personally. I want the guy that's going to put it through consistently from 58, 55. Because, again, we're playing in Green Bay, whether I was coaching in New England, coaching in MetLife, we're going to play in elements. And, you're not going to need the 60-yard ball all the time. You're going to need the 45-yard ball with a 14-mile-an-hour crosswind. So his ball not moving and stuff like that was definitely a big part for me.
How much of a thing is the Florida kicker learning how to kick in Green Bay? Is there more made of that than it should be, or is that something that you do have to actually transition to the core when you're with it?
For me personally, I think it's more made of than it is. I mean, just think about the history here, right? Ryan Longwell, Oregon, Cal, pretty good here, right? Mason Crosby, Texas, Colorado, pretty good here. I was blessed to coach Stephen Gostkowski, Mississippi, Memphis, New England, Nick Folk, California, Arizona, kicked pretty good at MetLife, kicked pretty well. So to me, I think it's a little bit more made up of the cold elements than there probably really is to it. To me, it's more about their mindset and learning how to play their ball in the wind and the elements than it is actually the cold weather and those things. I mean, we're going to go kick cold footballs to practice. We practice outside. So we'll get used to that. You know, many times we can be outside or kick or be in Lambeau and kick, the better we're going to be.
The Giants were a good kickoff return team last year. What's the key to being successful under this new format in terms of kickoff return?
First is buy-in. Having guys that want to do it. That's the biggest thing, and having a plan for those guys and attacking it every day. It's the little things. I tell the guys we're going to focus every day. It's the attention to details. It's the can't win till you keep from losing mindset. Don't commit penalties. We're not going to want to start our offense inside the 30-yard line ever. Our goal is to get out past that, but it's each other knowing, understanding. I tell the guys all the time we want to consistently hit singles. If you use a baseball analogy, we're going to hit the singles. We're going to hit the singles, and then sooner or later that pitcher's going to groove one, and we're going to knock it out the park. So it's the consistent thing, and it's doing those little things over and over and over. But it starts with the fundamentals and the techniques. You'll hear me say that a good bit. It's the fundamentals, it's the hand placement, it's the blocking leverage, it's the returner knowing the tracks he has to run. It's all tied together. But I think it's for our guys understanding the concept and then the belief in knowing, all right, as long as I do my job, it's going to set up everyone else out on the field.
All right, so that's, again, just a little bit from Cam. Dude's got energy. That was kind of the first thing that popped out to me yesterday. Dude brings some energy. He's got that. There's a couple of things he also said that stood out to me. But we got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to hit that up. Coming up after these quick words. Summer is almost here, and that means it's time to hit the road in something that you love. At Toys at Ford, you'll find a great selection of new and pre-owned vehicles ready for every adventure. Looking for power, comfort, reliability? They've got it all, backed by a team that's committed to making your car buying experience easy and stress-free. So whether it's a weekend getaway or your daily drive, make sure that you're riding in style this summer. Toys at Ford, Chip Falls, where your next journey begins. Speaking of which, I am so ready for some baseball game. I should say, I love your phrase. I'm so ready for some express games for this summer. Carson Park, Van Dyke and that. Man, chilly temperatures last night at baseball, coaching baseball with the wind and the cold. It's like, we got another game tonight. That's why I'm on my fourth cup of coffee, third cup, whatever the heck it is. So, but I'm ready to just kind of kick back and watch some baseball at Carson Park for some express games on that fan deck. But speaking of energy, so talked a little bit about, or we heard from Cam, the new special teams coordinator for the Packers. Apparently that's a guy I was reading a little bit too from Billy Huber, who covers the Packers, and little nugget there. The reason he's got a lot of energy here too is apparently this was from an article back in 2020. Cam says he usually drinks 6 or 7 coffees followed by 3 Pepsis per day. Bill followed that up and said that, he asked Cam about it, said, quote, I've tried to cut back. I would say now that I'm down to about 3 to 4 cups of coffee, and I've cut out the sodas. So I'm probably down to 3 or 4 coffees, 2 before, and then maybe 1 or 2 after. About 2 o'clock, I'll have 1 every day, but I'm naturally a high-energy person anyways. So, but, a couple things from Cam that stood out to me. One, I don't know if he was ready or prepared for that question about a Florida kicker coming up to Green Bay and kicking in the elements, but the fact that he could name drop the colleges, first of all, name drop Ryan Longwell, Mason Crosby a little bit more recent and such, but Ryan Longwell, Mason Crosby, and then the colleges that they went to make his point. I don't know if he was ready for that question, prepared for that, or he just kind of knew that. It's like, all right, I like the preparation. But the big thing is, too, when he talked about the return game, and I think it was a frustration point for a lot of Packers fans, especially last year, is when you have an all-pro kicker or kick returner like Keyshawn Nixon, he's not in there. And then you're throwing Josh Jacobs into a play-in or to a playoff game to return. Like, what's going on here? Where he mentioned you got to have players buying in. Starts there. They want to play that. They got to buy into that. 100% agree. Now it's up to Cam, and it's up to this team, and it's up to this coaching staff to get those players to buy in. And back in the day, and I don't think you really hear this as much anymore. You hear a little bit, but back in the day, you would always hear, best way for these players to get on the roster, these back-end roster, or these late rookies, you got to play special teams. You got to perform at special teams and that. And I feel like that's, you don't hear it as much anymore. You hear a little bit drafts like, okay, this guy was drafted for special teams, but do the players buying into that? Is it a mindset now for these players? It's like, do they almost view it as like a negative? I don't want to play special teams. I want to be on the field in defense. I want to be on offense. I want to be making plays there. Got to have the buy-in from the players to do that. And you got to have the buy-in from returners, kick returners, to want to return that football, to want to be able to make plays. And I like the analogy he did with the baseball. Hey, we're going to hit singles. We're going to continue to hit singles. And then eventually that pitcher is going to groove one, and then we hit that home run. I like that analogy when it comes to special teams and the return unit. You're not going to be able to bust one open every return. You'd like to. You'd love to be able to say you're going to get a return every single time for a TD or a big return. But you're just kind of grinding it away, and you're doing the little things right. He mentioned not having your offense start within the 30. And how many times over the last couple of years was it a penalty where the offense, where Jordan Love and the Packers offense was starting within the 30? When the NFL has made it to where at the bare minimum you should be starting at the 30. There shouldn't be so many times where you're starting within the 30 because of a stupid penalty. And he talked about that, not having those penalties, not starting within the 30, putting your offense on a shorter field, for crying out loud. Give your offense the advantage. Don't make them go the distance the whole time. Don't make them go the length of the fields. There is no reason on kickoffs you should be starting like at the 20. Bare minimum, it should be that 30. Given the rules, given the return, like how they've adjusted this. That should be the minimum. That should be the mindset. And it starts by not having stupid penalties, doing your job, and getting players to buy in. And, if I go to camp this year, practices and such, you heard him. He seems like a high-energy guy. He talks about, when we get to practice, he's going to move around. I hope that energy kind of, the players buy into that. And I think to be, again, this is just me being an armchair quarterback in this thing. But I think to be a successful special teams coach and a special teams coordinator, to get those players to buy in, you've got to bring the energy. And you've got to bring that enthusiasm to the job. Because I think that's what's going to get those players to buy in. When you've got their coach, their coordinator, who's bringing that energy day in, day out. And it's hard, and it's probably why he's got to have 4, 5, 6 cups of coffee a day. But if you're a player and you're playing for a coach that's bringing that energy every single day, that's going to get you to buy in. That's going to get you excited to play on that special teams unit. Got to have that mindset. You got to be able to go out there and want to do it. And I'm sure there's probably some people, fans-wise, saying players should just automatically be if they get to play the NFL. Yeah, you're probably right, but let's also face it, it's 2026. A lot of things have changed over the years too, right? Call it entitlement, call it whatever you want. The biggest thing in this thing for special teams to make a leap, to get better, to get improvement is the buy-in and doing the little things right. And it starts with the coordinator. It starts with Cam, and it starts with the coaching staff. Get those players to buy in, bring the energy, bring the enthusiasm. If you can get that, that's going to cover a lot. You just kind of wonder, with a lot of those stupid penalties, was it just players out there not buying in and just kind of like, all right, going out there, got to do my thing. Oh, there's a hold. Well, whatever. Got to bring the energy. I want to see a special teams unit that is just flying across the board. That when they make a tackle deep in the opponent's territory, they're jumping up, they're running around, they're pumped up, they're making a big play, they're physical. I want to see that from special teams. Can set the tone for a lot of things, right? Think about it. Let's say you're punting the ball away, all right? And we got a good punter. Daniel Whelan, pretty darn good punter. Let's say he gets it down there, and all of a sudden you got a big hit from a gunner. Get up, celebrate, get that thing going, get that team pumped up. Defense comes out there. You just gave that, your special teams unit just gave you some, deep in the offense's territory. Get out there and use that momentum. Offensively, you get a bigger turn, that's going to spark the offense too. All right. Let's take a quick break. Your thoughts. We got to talk Tyrod Taylor yet, too. I know we talked a little bit about that in the first hour, but Packers got a brand new quarterback or brand new backup quarterback. Oh, pump the brakes on that. Brand new backup quarterback. What do you think? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? 2 thumbs up? Let's hit that up as we close out the second hour. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. With it being Mother's Day coming up this week, and of course, Hy-Vee's got some sales going on to help make your Mother's Day even more special. You got lots of low prices for mom. You got you check out the floral department. There's always gifts over there, or some bouquet of flowers and such, or maybe you can. I was looking at if you go to Hy-Vee's Facebook page right now. All right, they've got some prices on some floral arrangements over there, or maybe some chocolate covered strawberries and such. This would be mostly for me and Hudson, but $3.99 Tombstone pizzas. Giddy up, load up the freezer there. Heck yeah, Medford Pride, man. So, but head on over to Hy-Vee's Facebook page, Hy-Vee and Eau Claire's Facebook page for the latest weekly flyer, weekly or daily deals, weekly deals. Going on. Plus, if you're looking for a spot for breakfast too, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Market Grill, they serve breakfast daily from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. over at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Got a few minutes left to the top of the hour, so we'll save a little Tyrod Taylor talk coming up in the next hour, but I'll just say by a wide margin, y'all like it. Except for, it looks like one texter doesn't. But from a wide margin, it's thumbs up. So, but we'll hit that up coming up in the next hour here. So, just to kind of deep dive into it a little bit more. It is a Toys for Ford Grind My Gears Tuesday. So, what is grinding your gears, peeps? Get it off your chest. Let us know. Also, what's your sports confessions? Okay, what's a confession sports wise that you would like to kind of maybe throw it out there and maybe take a load off your shoulders. So. It is also I'm not saying, but I'm just saying Tuesday. I'm not saying blank. I'm just saying blank. All right. Fill in the blanks. Best ones we'll read up on the air. So, and then coming up in about 25 minutes or so, we'll catch up with RJ Cardinal, all things Badgers from Badgerland down in Madison. So we'll catch up with RJ here. And again, about 25 minutes or so. Brewers, we'll get back to some more Brewers chat as well as we get set for Game 2 of this series at 6:45 first pitch. You can listen to it on the radio dials of 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Pregame coverage begins 35 minutes prior, so around 6:10. Around 6:10 tonight. Brandon Sproat is going to get the start for the Brew Crew. Jackson Churio, in his season debut yesterday, was in fuego. 4 for 4. Also got a walk, but a couple doubles on there. And that ball was flying off of his bat. We're talking over 100 miles per hour. Over 100 miles per hour on each of those hits. It's like, dude was saving up for this moment, maybe taking some of that aggression out on the ball. It was fun to see. So, what does he have in store for us going forward, right? I know we're putting a lot into just one game, but it was good to see Jackson Churio playing last night and seeing that offensive production from him too. So Andrew Vaughn also returned to the lineup as well. No Cooper Pratt. Apparently it was a little bit of a foot soreness. So when he was taken out a late scratch on Sunday, some speculation that maybe he'd go up to the Major League Ball Club, but did have a sore foot. So that's why. You think if you had to make a bold statement or a guess or whatever, do you think we're going to see him by June 1st or by Father's Day weekend? we're getting next to nothing from the left side of the infield from production standpoint. And I know that's not the strong point for Cooper Pratt has been offense, but he's hitting really well now as of late. Do you strike while the iron's hot? What do you say? I kind of think so. I kind of think so. But anywho, we'll get back to some more baseball talk coming up here in just a little while here too. All right, shot clock's going to cut me off. We got some news updates. We're going to head into halftime here. We'll talk a little Tyrod Taylor. Again, it looks like a wide majority of you chiming in saying 2 thumbs up with the move. So we'll get to that. Get to talk about that. And then, from the clips that we played from Jonathan Gannon and Cam Achord, your thoughts, your first impressions. This is the first time they've talked to the Packers media. Your first impressions from your new defensive coordinator and your new special teams coordinator. Also, Adam Stenovich did talk yesterday, too. I want to get to some of his quotes. And he did bring up Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. I want to hit that up here, too. So, all right. News updates. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.